The AYN Loki Max is an absolutely awesome, capable and pocket-friendly gaming handheld PC, but it has a lot of competition to deal with the biggest competitor for me being the Steam Deck. The AYN Loki Max is a massively capable and actually pocket-friendly gaming handheld PC, but the question that needs to be answered is how does the AYN Loki Max compare against the Steam Deck? When the AYN Loki Max first was announced, instantly it was compared against the Steam Deck. And on paper it stood toe-to-toe and actually looked like a huge improvement over the Steam Deck. Coming powered with a 12-core AMD Zen 3 Plus 6800U processor and an AMD RDNA 2 Radeon 680M GPU meant that it was flexing pretty hard in power over the Steam Deck. And comparing the top end models of both devices, the price, especially if you got a pre-order discount, was really competitive. But a year and a half later and the AYN Loki Max is here, and does it really compare with the Steam Deck in the way that we thought it would? Now first things first, physically, the AYN Loki Max is smaller than the Steam Deck. And that is kind of up to the user as to whether that's a pro or a con. A lot of people feel like the Steam Deck is a bit too big. I personally think it's a great size and really comfortable to use. But one thing that can definitely be said about the Steam Deck is that it's certainly not pocketable. And in some respects, it's not very portable. Of course, you can put it in the case, put it in your carry case, take it wherever you want. It's portable in that sense, but it's not portable in the sense of feeling comfortable to be able to take it with you on a train journey, car journey, bus journey, and be able to just grab it and go anywhere you go in to maybe have a quick play session when you get a chance. And although a large part of it is to do with the cost of a device like this, you don't necessarily want to lug it about everywhere. It's also down to the fact of the size. And this is where the Loki Max does shine. It's such a powerful gaming handheld PC option, but it comes in a much smaller package. A package that you could even argue is pocketable. If you do overcome the generic cost of any gaming handheld PC and you don't mind lugging it about, then the AYN Loki Max is definitely more portable and even potentially pocketable compared to the Steam Deck. But with it being a smaller device, there definitely has to be some trade-offs. And this is where the Steam Deck begins to shine. Firstly, the screen on the AYN Loki Max is smaller naturally, but when you're dealing with a gaming handheld experience, a small screen isn't really what you want. Now the AYN Loki Max definitely gives you everything you need, but it is on the bottom limit of what you could get away with in terms of a small screen. The Steam Deck on the other hand, with a much bigger screen, is much more comfortable to use and to see things as well. Now granted, Steam OS is easier to see things in Windows, but even when you go into Linux mode on the Steam Deck, it's still a lot easier to see what you're doing. And the clarity and crispness of the Steam Deck just feels better than the AYN Loki Max. Furthermore, with the design of the Loki Max, there's no space for trackpads. And this is something that I think sorely missing, especially considering it's a Windows gaming handheld PC that doesn't have a native gamepad support system on it like SteamOS. Straight out of the box, using Windows on a gaming handheld PC is tricky, and using things like trackpads could really elevate the experience. But the Loki Max doesn't have them and the Steam Deck does, so that's definitely a tick in the box for the Steam Deck. In terms of physical feeling of the Steam Deck versus the AYN Loki Max, I would say the Loki Max in some respects feels a little bit weightier than the Steam Deck, especially considering their relative size. But I'm happy to say that both devices do have a nice weightiness to them. They both have a very solid and premium feel to them as well, making them feel like really capable and premium devices, which is exactly what you want in such a high-end device. When it comes to controls, they're pretty much on par. Triggers, buttons, all feel pretty much alike, but the one difference is that I would say that the analog sticks on the AYN Loki Max feel slightly looser than on the Steam Deck, and the D-pad on the Loki Max is a little bit clickier as well. Now I guess this one's just going to be chalked up to preference, but for me, I feel like the Steam Deck sticks just feel a little bit better, especially for that higher fidelity you do need for a gaming handheld PC. And the less clickiness of the D-pad on the Steam Deck just feels a little bit more premium. But honestly, we're kind of nitpicking, and in terms of buttons that you need on a device like this, both have you fully covered for all the types of games you would want to play on a gaming handheld PC. Now one of the big things about the AYN Loki Max when it was announced was that it had a better battery than the Steam Deck. But in all honesty, with comparisons, I found the difference quite negligible. Both systems give you between 1 to 4 hours of gaming, depending on the type of game you play it. I think you could say the Loki Max does push it a little bit more with some games, maybe giving you an extra half an hour. But in all honesty, when it comes to gaming handheld PCs, I think we just have to currently accept that, especially if we're playing AAA high-end games, chances are you're gonna need to be next to a power source and most likely have it plugged in at least at some point. The big difference, however, between the Steam Deck and the AYN Loki Max is Windows and SteamOS. The pick up and play difference between these two devices is night and day. The Steam Deck with SteamOS, although it's not perfect, genuinely feels like a handheld console. It feels like the UI was designed for this purpose. Whereas on the Loki Max, when you first started up and you presented with Windows, it's definitely clunky. It's not optimized for a handheld gaming PC, and you can see that straight away. Within the first few minutes, I was struggling just to even use the mouse and click on things. Granted, there are ways to swap between gamepad and keyboard and mouse support on the Loki Max, but it's still not perfect. And there are some issues you will have to fix before you can fully use it comfortably. I do have a separate video which deals with all of those that I definitely recommend you check out if you have a Loki Max, and that's right here. But even when you've optimized the Windows experience on a Loki Max or any Windows gaming handheld PC, it's never going to be as smooth or as comfortable as using SteamOS. Now, when you change the Steam Deck into Linux mode, desktop mode, it's definitely not as smooth as SteamOS, but it still feels a little bit more optimized and comfortable to use than Windows. The only real issue I've ever had on the Steam Deck with desktop mode is when trying to use the keyboard. Other than that, it's pretty smooth. Whereas with the Loki Max, there are a number of issues, things like the on-screen keyboard, as well as trying to play games which don't have gamepad support, and a load of other things which stop it from being a pick up and play option. I could comfortably recommend the Steam Deck to pretty much anybody interested in video games and know that they'd be able to comfortably use it out of the box. A Windows gaming handheld PC, however, the AYN Loki Max, I don't feel like I could do that. But being a Windows device does have its benefits though. And those benefits come in the form of being able to play pretty much any Windows game you can think of, even games which aren't even fully released and are in alpha format. Other than the big top names that we know that the Steam Deck can't play, there's hundreds of other games from small developers or small companies that are designed only to play on Windows, and the Steam Deck just can't play those games like The Sandbox and Big Time. But on the AYN Loki Max, with it being a Windows gaming handheld PC, you can play those games with very little issues. Overall, the AYN Loki Max is an absolutely awesome console and a solid competitor to the Steam Deck. It benefits from more battery power, being more portable, access to more games, and even having more power under the hood. However, downsides come in the fact of it not being as user-friendly, with the likes of not having trackpads, having to use Windows operating system. The smaller screen can be an issue for some people, and it's just not going to have the community that something like the Steam Deck has. Overall, between the two of them, if I had to say which is a better gaming handheld system, I'd have to say the Steam Deck. However, there are some benefits to the Loki Max being a Windows gaming handheld PC that the Steam Deck still can't provide. But if you're not that bothered about having access to some of the more obscure Windows games, then I definitely recommend that you stick with the Steam Deck. If you want to see a more in-depth review of the AYN Loki Max and see how awesome it is as a Windows handheld gaming PC, check out this video right here.